Today we will be speaking about the talent hunting, how the companies are engaging and inviting talented youth, and we'll speak with you what's the way you are choosing, what motivates you. Because during the panel discussion we'll have several surveys. That is why do not hide your smartphones. You will need them even twice during this panel. So today, at this stage, we have Roman Gavrish, who's the leading partner of the Agency of Digital Marketing of Ambulance. Alexander Krishtal, Director of the Department of Digital Banking in Raiffeisen Bank Kaval. Natalia Pintan, the HR Director of Coca-Cola, HBC, Ukraine and Moldova. And also we'll have one more speaker soon, at least I hope he will join us at the stage. So, I'd like to begin with the survey. I would ask the operators to show the survey number 2 on the screen. And you can go to the chat board and to vote there, to press the button in any browser at slide.do. Do we have the operators there? We don't. So while they're running, I will begin with a quick question for our speakers, kind of a short one. Do you feel this deficit of staff? Because very often we can hear that Ukraine has the lack of job places, but some people say that there are no people. Yes, we have the very strong deficit. Yes, I do feel. The company of Coca-Cola Beverages, Ukraine and Moldova, really beginning to feel the deficit of talents now. And it more concerns the production sphere, the technical specializations, but now we're already feeling the deficit of talents connected with analytics. That is both the commercial analytics and financial analytics. Okay, thank you, dear friends. Do not forget to send the questions to our chat bot. I will tell about them to our speakers. So whom are you searching for? Which employees do you need, especially among the youth? Which skills, which knowledge do you need? Well, just recently the banks were rather closed clubs, where the staff was migrating inside. They mostly selected economists. But recently we began this technological revolution of ours, and the banks are also transformed, together with all the rest, into the technological companies. So our need now, or when I say ours, I mean the bank's one, is in the technical specialists. So there's programmers and architects and developers of totally different levels, UXs. So those are not that special for the bank professions, which more of the classical IT companies. I guess this is like that. So everyone needs IT skills. Well, maybe not the IT guy, but at least with a nice level of knowledge of how to work with the computer. Well, we have a bit of a different approach. We don't need programmers, but we need all the other affiliate professions, UX and analysts and strategists and so on. So everywhere in the creative industry we have this lack, very substantial lack, which is connected with the qualification and the software and the hardware and all the skills. As a commercial organization which has the production capacities, in our business unit we've got a very broad spectrum of those specializations where we are expecting candidates, beginning with the production jobs like operators of the production, and ending with financial analysts, or the direction which we're just now beginning to develop, big data, advanced analytics. So if we speak about youth, then the skills which we are expecting and which we would like to see are several. This is the leadership, the skill how to motivate both yourself and others to achieve ambitious aims, and of course the creativity or innovativeness, when you can find different approaches towards the existing problems. And of course this is the analytical or critical thinking, when in lots of sources and layers of data you need to choose what will be important to take out certain trends and according to them to make a decision making. And of course the client-driven character, because in spite of the sphere we are working at, the client-driven character is one of the most important things, and maybe more than just a skill. But at the level of the philosophy is what's called agility. That is the ability to have rather flexible and quick and agile to adapt to the changes. And of course, we would really like to see among the candidates those who can speak several languages, English especially. We are joined by Timur Bondaryev, the lawyer and the leading partner, the co-founder of Artsinger company. So Timur, instantly the question for you. Do you feel the deficit of staff in your company? I do apologize for my being late. So this is the Friday traffic jams. Yes, in fact, if honest, the question of deficit of staff can be considered from two angles. On the one hand, there is a crazy number of lawyers at the market. The crazy number of lawyers are graduating. That is why, when we take the number of people who would like to work in our company, it is just huge. And it's not a secret. We have a rather big share of the market. We're one of the leaders of the market. And thanks God, we are constantly getting lots of CVs. But the people who really suit our requirements and our wish to work in this speed, because there are lots of such, I would say, myths about the lawyer's profession. When the young lawyers are beginning to work, they think that in a year they can have the private jet, and in 2 years they will live in Manhattan, and they will get billion contracts. Well, thanks God, or maybe unfortunately, this way is rather long. And I want to believe that they will both have yachts and jets, but this way is a bit longer. So to make this long story short, there are lots of lawyers, but those who suit us are not enough, because not everyone understands the peculiarity of our job. And I would instantly make a short bow, because we have a huge issue with the law education. I know that this problem can be found in other industries, but in our industry, this is a huge issue, because not all of the higher educational institutions have been adapted to the requirements of us, the employers. So I myself, the teacher in the Kyiv-Mohyla Academy, and we went there to prepare the new generation for us. And the main problem is that the people, what they get in the university and what they see in our legal firm is a very big difference. And this is the cultural clash, because they are becoming disappointed. They were taught different level. Can we show the survey now? Okay. Do you see it? So you are coming either to the chatbot or to the slide.do. The number of that is 3276, and we are really interested to see your plans of your further life. The work in the Ukrainian company, the work in the foreign company, your own business, state or public administration, and down there is one more answer: to live for a different country. So we can see these active participants are voting, but I will ask several more questions. Roman, what's more important? There's some creativity, communicational skills, or the diploma? Do you look at the diploma? Well, in fact, I don't remember when we were asking about the diploma of our employees. No, the diploma doesn't matter for us at all. First of all, critical thinking is important. This is the deficit of critical thinking among youth, which is huge, and the wish to work, because really, as it was mentioned, they thought that they read the book of 99 francs, or they saw the movie, and they think that their advertisers and marketologists are having fun during the whole day, and they are not working. Only invent one idea, and then it's okay. So the wish to work and the critical thinking is a lot what we lack. Diploma doesn't matter at all. And in the bank, what about the creativity? Yes, creativity matters. Sure it does. In fact, I agree with my colleague. Diploma now doesn't have such a substantial role as it used to be. This is not the criteria. Still, the banks have this necessity to show the diploma as the paper that you've got it, that you came with the high education. And of course, the big dignity is the quality of this education. A nice higher education institution is a big plus. But the first place is taken by the practical skills. For instance, if we speak about the IT, now everyone knows that there are lots of courses of self-education. So you can go to Coursera and you can just grasp some coding language on your own without any teachers, without any universities, or even without leaving your house. So undoubtedly we are looking at the practical skills. We're looking how a person is developing, what he or she invests in that, and it plays the key role. But about the creative part, creativity, of course, just look at what's going on with the banks, online credits, deposits, all of those payments with the help of the cell phones, all of that is creativity. We cannot deal without that. Okay, thank you. On the other hand, innovations is what moving our business. Our consumers are waiting for novelties more and more, not only connected with the product, but also with the service and with the processes. So creativity and innovative character is one of the most important functions of ours. But on the other hand, if we are speaking about the financial accounting management, there maybe we need it, and we ask to show the diploma of higher education, of course. But we didn't have a single case when a specialist was coming without the diploma, but with an expert knowledge. If this candidate emerges, we would definitely take him. The financial sphere is still when diploma matters. On the other hand, we also have certain analytical affiliate departments and functions where we take young guys, even with some beginners level, even without the experience and education, and we are helping them to develop more. The most important thing is their wish and the vision of yourself and your career further on. Timur, what skills do the lawyers need? The today's modern lawyers? Well, in fact, look, the legal professions are one of the most conservative in the world. So, of course, what I see, the innovative character of the legal business, yes, it's of course welcome, and we are taking part in all of the projects like that, and we invest a lot in that. But of course, creativity in this world and openness and agility and lots of what has been mentioned and welcome, of course it is present, because the world is changing, the complexity of the contracts is changing, and our lawyers need to be ready to have this rapid adaptation to the requirements of our clients. And of course, English language is incredibly important for that, because our companies, the majority of clients are international. So this is the ways, this is the must for the communication. If I went to the labor market before, the main criterion was English language, and now it's a bit in a different way. And of course, in my opinion, education matters a lot, and the diploma of higher education is the part of the file of the potential candidate. But I know certain cases, and I even fired people who had 3 or 4 high educations, nice and high marks, everything was okay, but he or she was just not capable to satisfy the requirements, and vice versa. The career was pursued by the lawyers which have graduated from some provincial higher education institution. But because they wanted to move on, they were rather adequate and they understood what they want, they achieved the huge career in my company. Okay, thank you. Let us look at the results of our audience. Honestly speaking, I am amazed. 34% want to open their own business. 24% are working for the foreign company, 19% in the Ukrainian company, 19% as the public administration, which is a rather high percent, and only 3% consider that they should leave for a different country to find better life standards. Wow. Well, their own business. Roman, how did you create it? Which obstacles did you face opening your business? Why did you choose your own business, not the work of the top manager in the corporation? I had not the typical story for my own business. My trajectory was different. I began with the management of the company, of the cell phone coverage, and it was long ago. I was suggested to have the leading position with a minority partnership, and then I had the separate company, which has become even the majority one. So this is a very specific way. So I can't say that it can be considered the only way, but it seems to me that this indicator is really cool, that 33% want to open their own business and only 4% want to leave somewhere. That is cool. I do greet this audience. You are cool, and go on with that. Alexander, is the bank ready to hire the students? Because sometimes they say that we're having some paperwork which is rather simple and it does not give us lots of experience. Do you have a certain experience to engage students in your work? Yes. We're working with the students in a very fruitful manner. And the paperwork, sometimes, yes, it happens. What can you do with that? It depends on where you find yourself in the end. But again, if I speak about the IT sphere, we have a wonderful program of internship for the students. So the students can give an application and to get to their 6-month internship. During those half a year, the participants of the student in the work is not that substantial. He can study and simultaneously get certain skills in the bank. So that's approximately 20 hours a week. After the 6 months, we offer work for those students. So the work of the students is not limited by the IT. Other departments, legal ones and the accounting, they need fresh blood. So we always say, can you take the diploma of politologist and to work in the bank? But you said that the diploma is not that important. I would ask, what would the diploma of politologist would like to do? He would like to implement projects and investments. Okay, you can try. How does Coca-Cola work with students? Which system of internship do you have? We are glad to see among us the young students or ex-students. We've got several different ways of work where we gladly work with the young talents. As the first place of work, we have the huge experience when the guys with a small experience of work are coming to us to have different positions which maybe don't need any specific skills or experience, like the trade representative, the younger analyst. So it could be a wonderful beginning of the career. We have the internship program, which is more focused upon the work with the precise departments and functions, that is the financial function and the business system and the solutions. So this is the 6-month term of internship, which has the name of the creation of career. And the main thing is the short-term project, which allows, first of all, to see the wish and the result, how the young talent copes, and also to get the new employee acquainted with different functions and to define in half a year where this young talent can go for a permanent workplace. So we have the program for the development of future leaders. This is the 2-year program. When ex-students are coming, and it's created in the way that it's more massive, long-term projects and the special formal training. So after 2 years, we have some successful experience when the young guys and girls who came as the interns, they are becoming leaders and the managers of the middle level. So if you want to find yourself in the future, we've got the online platform Youth Empowered, where you can not only assess your own profile, what you like more as a student or an ex-student, but also to have an online course and to take part in the webinars, which are organized by our employees as well and our managers too. Thank you. Timur, you said that you are cooperating with the universities and you have to train students with practical cases. How do you create this cooperation? What do you pay attention for? What programs exist and in which universities? Well, yeah, really. The peculiarity of our market, well, I don't know how it's working still. In all of the economic sectors, I know about the IT industry, which is actively cooperating with the universities and preparing the future employees in Ukraine. In the legal sector, the trend of the latest years is the following. If 10 years ago we were hunting for the graduates, then during the last years we begin the cooperation with the higher education institutions. Since the 2nd or 3rd year, we are creating loyalty to our brand, and I would say we are hunting for the best at this level. So we are working systematically with the higher educational institutions to become visible. In this sense, the main higher educational institutions, well, it's not a secret, Kyiv Mohila Academy, the Red Building of the National University Odessa Academy, Kharkiv, Lviv. This is our short list with which we are working first of all. And in Lviv and Odessa we have our offices, so we have really close partnership relationship. So the students are totally in the internship of our company. We have the whole queue to have internship at our company. But about what we are exactly doing, we have the whole program, and the students can come for our internship and to see what we are doing. The people who begin to work permanent basis with us, which is also important. I was so amazed when I got to know that some of the legal firms sometimes are sending emails through the partners with their clients. They don't even see the clients, but our lawyers, even the young lawyers, have already access to the client. And the internship of the clients because lots of our lawyers are seconded to our clients, and the clients really value that because it's very important for them to have legal support. And I'm sure that the lawyer cannot be a nice lawyer until he hasn't worked at the client's office. So this is also the bonus. And when we have this internship abroad and international conferences, when we'd like to show how the world is working and our clients are working to provide the better services. Thank you. The question from the audience: if diploma is not that important, how can I take part in the selection for the job place? Should you believe what people say? Which tests do you use? How do you hire people? For instance, I will tell about myself. In our company, for lots of years, we are using the system of Thomas. This is the company of Janssen Capital Management, which operates this system in Ukraine. It has the short test of 15 questions, totally psychological questions, and the conclusions, when I read it, and I personally passed this test and read the conclusions, I couldn't believe that according to those answers you can make such conclusions. This is just science fiction. Moreover, you can not only understand a person and his or her motivation and the competences and psychological different issues and moments, you can also have the test for compatibility of the employees. The system of Thomas is a wonderful tool. What do you use? Well, tomorrow we'll have a so-called strategist demo day, because we're inviting 30 young people who want to work as strategists at our place. We are distributing and into groups, and they're working during a day with a real life case. They are our clients, and we are developing the strategies for them using all the toolkit we are having. And in the format of assemblies, we're looking at the group dynamics and the leadership and the critical thinking and the presentational skills. And in the end of the day, we have the short list of the people with whom we want to go on working and to conduct psychological testing and so on. So yeah, there are lots of tools which are helping to choose the qualified employee in an efficient way. Thank you. How do banks select? There are lots of tools, and again, it depends on the sphere where the applicant is applying for, but overall, those are several stages of an interview, both a classical one and in the majority of cases just tests. So again, I will repeat, for the IT, it could be the case connected with the technological stack the person will eventually work with. For instance, for UAIX, this could be the task on the reprocessing of some interface. Or, for instance, we had an interesting case when we were cooperating with the company and it conducted the contest among the IT guys. The person who won this contest with our task was hired by us later, and this task was implemented into the live product. It is working. There are lots of such cases, so it is working. If you don't believe the words, you can see the real people in the work. Natalia? Yes, really, we are also using, as well as the colleagues do, the combination of different tools, beginning with their usual interview and ending with the group business cases, individual business cases, which are named in trade, when you have the restricted time and you have to take these or those decisions, which very nicely shows all of the skills which are necessary for us, and also the group business cases, where you can see the dynamics and the leadership of our candidates. And of course, the testing is totally used. Besides that, when we speak about some of the specific spheres, for instance, the planning or analytics, we have developed the tailor-made ones for each position where it's needed, the special business cases for that, where you have the real conditions already, and we are watching how the person is offering or taking certain decisions. Timur, how is it happening in your company? In fact, we have the same story. We cannot invent a wheel here. especially considering the specifics of our branch, the tests, the interviews, deeper interviews, and the case interviews. It's very important for us to witness that this lawyer is correspondent to the requirements of our client. The logics tests, which are incredibly important, and besides that, we've got more ones on the stress, because the peculiarity of the lawyer in the legal firm, because you're simultaneously having several clients and each of them wants to feel as the favorite one and the only one. So very often lots of the lawyers do not stand that, because you need to serve several at once. So maybe this is an important component of the selection process. It's going on for a long time, because we have the HR as a gatekeeper who is instantly having already the understanding whether this is our type or not, and then we're having that interview on the level of the team, depending on the position of the partner. He or she can pay attention to look at the person at the final stage. Sometimes the interview can have 5 to 6 to 7 rounds to be sure that this is our person. Okay, thank you. Let us now speak a bit about the different topic, the motivation of the stuff. The world is dynamically changing, technologies are changing, and in my opinion, the psychology of the employees is changing as well, especially of the young generation. It is looking at the work in a different way. The growth in the world of the numbers of co-workings, of double-digit, and freelancers, and double-digit... Well, we can see that we have 30% of the people who want to create their own business, not just to work at some company. How can we motivate, and which problems do you see with the motivation in Ukraine? We are even working with several IT companies on the so-called employer branding. And we faced the situation that we understand that to motivate, this is our working hypothesis, that it is just impossible to motivate the person who does not have the correspondent qualities on his or her own. Whatever you do and dance around the specialist who is not motivated enough, it will never work. And sometimes we even speaking about neurophysiology and trying to study the work of our brain on the motivational issues. Those are additional issues, working with motivation. All of those substances are working in a foreseen way. So we are trying to study the experience of the game design industry, because their idea is working around dopamine for the people who are playing to go on playing. So we do pay attention to the fact that the youth attitude to the work looks like the game. The idea of not working but to play a game. And we design our working experience in the way that in the game for us to be of any use. Well, I cannot help agreeing with Roman. Really, we need to have a certain gamification way. For instance, at our bank, we also have the system of aims and goals for the majority of the employees. And when we don't measure the certain percentage of anything, each of you get a certain set of aims for a certain period of time. And according to the results of this estimation, we are getting the bonuses, the increase of the wages, and so on. But what are the bonuses? What do you think can be motivating them? Later we'll ask them, but still it's interesting to hear the opinion of our speakers. The wages, the bonuses, free time, studies, what motivates them, in your opinion? Well, again, I cannot help agreeing with Roman, because if the person lacks motivation, there is this... it's not that easy to make him or her motivated. This could be a short-term action and nothing more. I can judge, for instance, on myself. For me, motivation, the best motivation, is the interesting project. If you've got an interesting project, an interesting work, it's really cool. And this is what we suggest and offer for the youth, to be involved in some interesting projects. What else? Well, this is the question. For me personally, well, I was told it's not important where you work, it's important with whom you're working, the team. How is it working in Coca-Cola? What's your motivation and what's the feedback of your employees? What motivates them? It's very important, and I totally agree, it's very important with whom you are working. And for us, we are conducting different research, surveys, polls and measurements. We digitalize lots of data, and for ourselves we can see several directions of work. First of all, it's very important to see the importance and value of your work, what's called meaningful work. What I do is not just to pull some papers. This is the investment into our common business. This is the supporting and developing management, when the leader and the superior is not, in the old sense of the word, the director who says what to do, but who helps and opens the potential, who helps to take a decision for me as an employee. This is also one of the important moments, the faith in leadership. How, as an employee, I'd like to understand the global strategy of our company. I would not like it only to understand, but to believe that it's true, it's right, the opportunities for growth. Lots of them, especially younger talents, are motivated by the opportunities of not only career growth, but opportunities for the professional growth. How we as employers can support this wish to develop on. Well, of course, a very strong motivation now, and especially for the younger generation, is the positive surrounding the working environment. This is also the wish of the flexible schedule of work. We are beginning to go away from the usual 9 to 6 working schedule where it's possible. This is also the motivator of the youth. And of course, no one forgets about the basic things which are the basic system of motivation, like monetary motivation. When we're speaking about the participants of the fixed wages, we can have the variation part of the salary, which can allow me regulate my income or achieve more and get more depending on my investment into business. And it is reflected not only in the additional bonuses and bonus systems, it is reflected in the additional goods. If I am growing and I invest more into the business, I have more goods, medical insurance, vehicles, different non-monetary goods. Moreover, what else is motivating and goes on motivating is to be the part of, to feel this participants in the team, which we know is the team number one, and which is not only the team at work. We are not just colleagues, we are the part of the family. This feeling of belonging, this is one of the most important motivating factors. When we are not just working, we are celebrating our successes together as a family. Do you have the competition between the managers? Do you have the competition between the employees within the organization, some contests? We've got lots of different systems. We have the competitions where it's really would be fair and transparent. In the sales department, we have the program named Branch Competition, where we compare the results. Monthly, we know the best trading expert on Ukraine and Moldova, and this is not the monetary motivation purely, but how people relate to this award when at the annual sales marketing conference the best trade manager, sales manager gets the cup. It also matters and it creates the difference. Timur, what about the legal business? What motivates the huge projects, the partnership, the opportunity to become a co-owner? Thank you. Well, in fact, look, as I have an honor to be one of the founders and leaders of one of the biggest law firms in Ukraine, we are paying rather competitive salaries. And the financial issue is not raised a priori. So it's incredibly important for us not to think about anything. Well, of course, there is the certain limit, but still, I am responsibly saying that our market, we're one of the biggest investors of the at the remuneration. Moreover, we have the approach that we don't want people to be motivated by the funds. This is the matter of principle for us, because in the legal business it can have bad consequences. So it's important for us people to be motivated by something different. We really understand and know how we need to work with the youth, what youth wants. That is why there is a question that the youth wants to belong to something bigger, not only the legal, some casuistics is incredibly important. We totally support it and provide it. We have a big program of corporate responsibility. We can define where we allocate money, both the address support and the funds. The second one, coming back to the statistical data or their own business, we are giving an opportunity to create their own business. And this is the zest of the legal forum. Every person has the right to implement his or her own business case, not only what can be found in the legal forum itself. Any lawyer who is coming tells us, Timur, I think that this niche is not covered by the legal forums. I think they can create the nice product here. I think this is the line of products, and those clients will need it. Okay, there is the procedure of the internal approval of this process, and the person can become the manager associate and to sell this service to the clients. And it really encourages people. In fact, it's also the way to the partnership. This is the next point and provision that me, as the founder of the company, I always declare. There's no point in which position you take. I can already see my partner. The day before yesterday, we began the financial year. We had certain promotions with the beginning of the financial year, with the 1st of April, and I greeted with my speech, congratulated the girl who came as a personal assistant of the partner, and she became an advisor. So she almost became the partner. She implemented her own aspirations, though she came to the position which was not law or legal. And other important points for the staff is the permanent feedback and work with the partners. And again, as for the point with whom you're working, the partners of our companies are the esteemed partners according to the international rankings. We belong to the well-accounted and acknowledged partners. For the younger generation, it's incredibly important for whom you're working. When they understand that they're working with one of the best experts in this branch, for them it is already a perfect opportunity not even to take wages at all. Okay, thank you. Let's ask the audience. Would you please show the third survey for today? Would you show them on the screen? Okay, let us ask our audience what is for them the main factor of motivation. Number 9168, this is the number of the voting. The first option is the size of the wages or salary, the second perspective of becoming a co-owner or the shareholder of the company, the opportunity of studies and learning and development, the team where you are working, or the flexible schedule of work. Well, you defined that. What about the flexible schedule of work? That's what I'd like to ask our speakers. Google company several years ago have adopted the rule that they have a day a week when the employees can do whatever they want, their own projects, their own affairs, and it stimulates them to work on their own projects and startups, which later can become successful and be useful and profitable for the company. What's your attitude to such practice? Do you have it in your companies? What about your own creativity, your internal entrepreneurship? I would divide this question. First of all, about the flexible hours. It shows the decrease of the productivity, especially in the teamwork, because sometimes you physically have to be together to have the nice result as in the end of the day. So we have some issues with that, but still we have a rather free system within our company. If we speak about the free day to work on our projects, we don't have it. But what we plan and we want to do is the working week of 4 days, not 5, and not 8 6-hour day, but 5-hour day, because according to the different research, the brain cannot actively work more than 6 hours. We can see that people are slowing down in the end of the day, and they're not that useful. They're becoming exhausted, and the productivity for the next day is going down. So more free time and the flexible hours, well, sometimes, but because the teamwork needs you to be physically at the same place together. What about your bank? Can you have fintech startups on Saturdays or Fridays? Yes, they can. I will also answer in two parts. First of all, about the flexible hours. And again, it depends on what sphere of the work of the bank you're speaking about, because we have some of the regime objects which just need it because of the legislation and some of the regulations and so on. But the creative part, which again concerns IT, marketing and other departments, it feels totally flexible and free, and it's not restricted from recent times, like with some restrictions like 9 to 6 or the lunch 1 to 2. So the colleagues and employees are free to choose what they want. The main criterion of success is to have the timely launched project. And of course there are certain rituals, like stand-ups, certain team meetings and so on. They are compulsory to visit physically. It is important again. This is again of the team spirit issue. And the second part about innovations. Well, in fact, our group, as it is Raiffeisen Group, Raiffeisen International Group, has a very serious attitude towards its issue. Last year, at the level of the group, we've launched a huge competition between all of the countries, where each of the employees had the chance to give his or her ideas and gradually to get the team and funding to implement it. So the first pilot projects have begun. Just recently we are launching the contest among our employees in Ukraine. This is an additional bonus to what's done in the headquarters. So we are focused upon the cultivation of this process, the creation of new ideas and internal entrepreneurship. It seems to me incredibly important. Cool, Natalia? Well, this is not the first year when we also globally, at the level of the whole group, are working with the project of innovations. And Ukraine and Moldova, our business unit, we are so happy that the biggest number of idea generation belongs to us, which witnesses that we are not only achieving results, our people are also very creative, and the ideas which emerged really were implemented now, at least some of them, and some of them are just wow ideas. Of course, we go on with the projects on innovations, and besides that now we are trying to delegate some part of the routine obligations to be transformed onto the project foundation. We try to transform them onto this project component, engaging not only the people who are responsible for this process, but other cross-functional teams. For instance, when we speak about a certain organization of the motivational program and the awards, how we'll do that, maybe it can be done by the HR as he or she understands that, but engaging people from business and other departments, we get a totally different result. We get much higher quality of the level of this program. And here, this is rather close to the startup idea, because the person feels his or her belonging. He feels that he's responsible for this project and presents its results to the superiors, which is also a certain step forward about the motivation. So if we speak about the flexible hours, we also have certain functions and departments where unfortunately we wouldn't be able to implement that now. Well, maybe just some virtual management of the production lines would be implemented soon. But those functions where we can do that, we are still working on the projects of the implementation, how we can implement it in life. Okay, thank you. So how is it done in the legal sphere of internal entrepreneurship? Well, look, I will begin with the flexible hours. Well, in fact, unfortunately, we are not Google. We cannot allow ourselves to have one day free or to do whatever you want, because we have the peculiarity of our work. We have the procedural terms, and if the last day of this term is the day when the person is not at the job place, I will have the court file from the client. Still, considering the very complicated schedule when we are staying up till 3 or 4 or 5 a.m., or we can have the conference call with a client from Australia or Singapore at 3 a.m., you have to work, and sometimes the conference calls can last for 7 or 8 hours when the contract is rather complicated. I cannot claim that the person should be at the working hours since 9, so of course we have this flexible schedule. We're also very friendly about the maternity, so we have lots of cases, because lots of the girls gave birth to more than 1 or 2 children. They're working from home. We organized all the infrastructure, so it concerns all of the employees. We provided the IT infrastructure because there is a very hard schedule of business trips. You need to be in Paris and in America. The person has to be in connection with us, but the staff meetings and project meetings are incredibly important. If you have an opportunity, you should visit them, but still. In fact, we have provided 24/7 availability of our people, and we support it on a permanent basis. As of the internal entrepreneurship, I already mentioned the example that each person can have the right to provide the business case. We are very open about that because we do understand that we are the partners, we are the owners of the business, and we are up there. Maybe we don't see something. There are certain topics which can be interesting for us that would encourage, first of all. Secondly, we have the permanent projects of Idea Box, or how is it called? The initiative group with all of the employees about the streamlining of business processes. So there are certain activists who are working permanently to simplify and ease the business processes. We don't want to bureaucratize anything. We want it to be not that saturated with business processes. And there are certain employees who are really interested in that. They totally come up with some ideas. This is not working, this can be improved, this can be simplified. And this is really very cool because, again, it helps people to feel themselves the part of something bigger, and they can see that they really influence something in the company. So again, this is my understanding of what cannot be bought by money. With money, it's really perceived positively, especially by youth. Okay, thank you. Let's look at the results of the survey. The first place is taken by the opportunity of training and development. The salary takes only the second place. And the third place is taken by the partnership or the opportunity to become a shareholder. So each of you is the leader in your company and the owner or the top manager. How do you take the decision? Where to head for? Whom to be? What motivates you? From your personal experience, which your personal aims do you have, which you'd like to share with our audience? It seems to me I have these specifics of the business to help other people, and I'm motivated when I have certain gratitude from the client, when we have achieved what we wanted, when we solved some issue of the client, when we created the product or the service to the market, we promoted it. It always makes me happy, and I think that in this case I'm just like all the other people. Well, as I already mentioned, for me, maybe, personally, the main motivation is the interesting project. When you have the certain drive and you can see ahead of you some huge challenges, and you can later feel the result of your own work. Seeing how it's used by millions of clients and customers, it's really cool. When such a product launches into life and you understand that it interacts with hundreds of thousands and millions of people, it's really an inspiration for me. It really motivates me. Maybe I would totally agree with the audience about the opportunities to train and to develop. I'm really motivated by that. I'm working at the company of Coca-Cola Beverages Ukraine and Moldova for a long time, and during this time I understand what it means to have an opportunity to develop. I began my career at the Department of HR. Later I was working in the financial department, in the project department, which is already convergent with the IT. I was working in the commercial function, and only now I came back to the HR just recently. So, the opportunities for the development are huge, and if you use them, it can totally motivate you. Besides that, this is an opportunity to impact the business results and outcomes. I'm sure, and I do hope, that the achievements which I'm proud of, the company is proud of them as well. And it makes the difference when you see the result of your work, which is reflected in the team, in the business result. This is what motivates me. Okay, thank you. Thank you for such an interesting question. I will divide it into three parts. Why the profession, why the business itself, and the third, why it's important to be the leader. Why the profession itself? Well, in fact, for lots of years I'm practicing that, and I still consider that the profession of the lawyer is the only profession which gives you crazy freedom. This is the only profession where you can take your own decisions, whether you want to work with this client or not, under which conditions, whether you want to deal with the project, and you are becoming the real architect of this project, especially under the conditions we are working now. It's really cool. Secondly, why the business itself? Before the creation of this company with my partners, I was gaining experience. I was a kind of expendable. I was at the state service, public service. I've been the main lawyer of the very big corporation of Ukraine and in the law firms. And I understood that, according to my character, it's not that easy for me to work on someone, for someone. So I understood that I want to create something on my own. Then my interests coincided. And why it's important and interesting to become the leader, why it's important to move in this direction, it's really cool, especially for the lawyers. Everybody knows that the majority of the lawyers are very ambitious. And it's the huge piece of work for our HR, because every lawyer, even the smallest one who's just beginning, he has the huge crown on his or her head, and you need to work with that. But the leader's position in any business is the interesting, unique projects and interesting people, because the more expensive the project is, the more challenging transaction is, the more unique people are working on it, because it's more complicated from the point of view of the structure, from the point of view of how you structure the payments and how the sides are cooperating with each other. From the point of view of the intellect, it's just super. The same concerns the complicated arbitrary court processes, because the one thing is the court file for $10,000 and the other thing is $10 billion in lots of jurisdictions. From the intellectual part, it's just really incredible. So I was always motivated by that, because the higher you're going along the career path, the more you understand that you have an opportunity to be involved in that. And there is the pragmatic aspect of the leadership. The higher you go, the more blue is the ocean. The competition is lower, and then you can sell yourself in a more expensive price, because there are not as many competitors, and you can get that much amount of money which you want to get. The last point, there is a big legal, well-known Slaughter May company in London, and I would ask them about hourly rates. They said, we don't have hourly rates. I asked them, how come? and they said we are appointing the payment which we consider to be reasonable for this or that contract. The clients are beginning to work with the law firm without knowing the price. This is the level which I am striving for with my team, and I do hope that soon we'll achieve this level. It is really cool. Okay, thank you. There are questions about the values. You are choosing people. Do you pay attention to the values of the people? How is it important for you? How do you broadcast and communicate those values with your employees? Yes, recently we have finished the 2-year transformational process, and it was named the management onto the transformational values. Now we are having these models and we are hiring people according to our value characteristics. In the daily life of our agency, we are trying to make any of our steps reflecting our values at the certain rituals. So yes, it's incredibly important for us, and we are trying for all of the employees, both we are hiring and who are working already, to reflect their values in our everyday work. Yes, we are also now dealing with the renovation of our mission and vision of the values of the company. We are conducting that and unifying that in the unified forum of work with our group. But the basic values of the company are also always the same: honesty and openness and trust. I will not list all of them, because unfortunately I don't remember the proper formulations, but still, those are rather comprehensible and totally understood things, and we do expect that our employees share the same values. So the teamwork is incredibly important, right? The team has to be at the same level of values. Yes. The opinions have to coincide at the value level, and in fact, the values are sometimes prevailing on the financial profit. So it both concerns the development of the products and the processes within the organization and overall of the whole vision. Natalia, I do remember that at one of the forums, Yevgen Chernyak had the same question, and he answered, well, if you are comfortable to have a drink with your employee in the night, then it's your person. Do you share this value? I think that the Coca-Cola has a bit of a different approach when you should have a drink. Well, of course, the values, the mission of the company, the values of the company is maybe the foundation which I would recommend for every candidate before even thinking about the search of job of the employer. How to define the perfect employer. You should first look at what the employer and the company declares as the mission, as the value. And after that, to have this, to take an advice from yourself, from your heart. Do your values correspond to those values? If yes, this is the coincidence, and then your story in the company can be really successful. Well, of course, when we select the people and hire people, we focus upon the values which we already declared long ago. They are evolutioning, but they are not changing. We are speaking about the victory together with the clients, and about the striving for the perfection, and the constant learning and training, the development of our employees and our teams. And those are our diversity, but we are one team. We respect the investment of each, but only the team result will lead to the common business result. So, of course, the values for us is the founding base for the further growth, not only of the employees, but for the business as a whole. Well, of course, values is a very important element of the work with the staff and the personnel, the very important foundation for our business. We have brainstormed about that for multiple times, and we have developed several main postulates about that. In English, it could be an expertise and credibility. Responsible leadership, professional pension, and openness. I will comment upon that. It's not the secret that Ukraine abroad has this rather ambiguous reputation. What we are living and seeing here is one thing, but on the other hand, Ukraine is perceived in a different way because there are lots of corruption scandals and so on. So, about the corruption in Ukraine, unfortunately, a big impact have the lawyers. Because we know that there is lots of corruption in law enforcement agencies, in the courts, and unfortunately, there are lots of law and legal firms which helped that opinion. So we understand that it's important for us to be ambassadors of Ukraine abroad, and every time when I'm asked what's going on in Ukraine, I'm trying to make it softer. That is why our company is trying to work in the way to fight all of those phenomena. So that's why responsible leadership issue is so important, and the social impact. When we understand that it depends on us as the leader how the Ukraine is perceived, and whether we have the necessary openness, as we are working with the really lots of clients and information. And it's important for us to be frank and sincere about the conflict of interests and the communication with the clients and with the external world, what we're doing, how we're doing. So, of course, the values is a very important element. And, of course, our company has some experience when we had to even say goodbye to some people who were really super experts. And they were taking part in different rankings, and they were acknowledged experts, but we had lots of issues with their values. For instance, the issue of corruption. For me, the money do smell. I do care how I earn it. But there are lots of people and legal firms at this market who are saying, what does it matter? Corruption. With the corruption, you can earn much more. Why don't we play this game? For us, this is the matter of principle. So we really had said goodbye to very nice experts who saw this world in a different way. They wanted to play this story. We didn't do that. Thank you. Let us speak more about the corporate culture, because very often I hear from the bigger companies that it is not that easy for them to integrate youth who is creative and who has the different view on the world, especially the innovators who are coming and breaking this older nature, which is already rather stable and stagnated in the company for lots of years. And on the one hand, the companies need innovators, they need innovations, but still, how can we put up with that? In the creative sphere, it's not that serious, but in the banks and in the telecommunications, it is the serious issue. In the bigger corporations, where the processes are very precise and prescripted, where any innovation is getting to the table of the financial director, and he's saying, what's the ROI there? And he's saying, but this is just an idea, the startup, and that's it. And the innovation is dying because of the incompatibility of the young innovation culture and the stable corporate culture. Do you face this issue? Well, in spite of us working with the young and creative industries, I would comment that yes, we also faced this issue when we began to grow a bit, and we decided to solve this issue with the help of the agile approach, when we were divided into teams, and every team of ours has its own microculture, and it helps to sew our companies together, though we could have certain discrepancies in the cultural understanding. Separate teams, yes, separate teams which have their own cultural rituals and approaches. An interesting solution. Banks. Well, okay, if Roman said that he even faced this problem, I don't have a single chance to get rid of this question. Well, of course we have this problem. The bigger the company is, the more complicated this issue is. And in particular, when the company itself and the top superiors are coming to the conclusion that they need to be changed, nothing happens. We have already those changing going on. and still you can say that they are rather successful. The first step, which was on the way of those changes, a year and a half ago, we got our own R&D laboratory, which was named Digital Hub, where we exactly began with the cross-functional teams stage. We decided to take out the people from IT, from the accounting office, from the business. We got them together and we gave the task and all the resources and go on with working with your own microclimate, agility, Scrum. So today it showed very nice results. We got rid and avoided different fractures between those departments. We created a certain microculture within the organization. And now we have the scaling of the whole bank. Okay, thank you. It's really important, being a huge corporation, to find a certain balance between those standard processes and procedures which exist already and the innovations and creativity. So maybe this is the dignity of our organization, where in our system of Coca-Cola Hellenic, this approach of innovativeness and creativity is supported, welcome, and initiated at the level of the whole group on the one hand. On the other hand, of course, we are working in the business, and the business result is incredibly important. So return of investment is also needed, but you should always look at the balance, what we can gain from the point of view of the implementation of this innovation, which benefits, which goods or results for the organization will be gained by the implementation of this innovation, even if the economic effect is not that clear. This is the decision-making process, seeing the global trends. As the big, huge international organization, it's easier to act for us, because from the perspective of all of the countries and all the business units and different markets, you can see certain trends. Yes, we've got some innovations in the marketing, they're obvious somewhere, and they're not that obvious in our country, but we know for sure which way we should go along. We are working on the converting lots of routine processes into the project base, where you can instantly see the result, where you can show and then assess whether we did it right or not. We try to work on our mistakes, and even the projects which can bring the mistakes, we can mitigate the impact onto the financial result, and in case of success, we are creating cascading of the process and we implement them at the level of the business units and other countries. Thank you. Well, thanks God we don't have this difference between the different generations, because our average age of the company is 28 years. So we are living in the environment where you have this permanent drive, we can feel it. And as I already mentioned, we have a very open atmosphere from the point of view of any innovations and the implementation of new initiatives. That is why this process is well organized. We have this certain self-regulation even, because we're rather open. We really rely upon people and they are self-organizing to solve these or those issues, because the main message of the management is the following. We don't have any stale rules which could bureaucratize our work. We need to work on the improvement of efficiency. If there is a certain rule and business process which makes it too big, or it's not that necessary, then sure, we are ready either to cancel it or to replace it with something new, or to implement a certain IT solution which would help us to become more efficient. That's it. Thank you. Okay, we are out of time now. That is why the last short question from the audience now. What should you develop? Which traits and features should you develop to become a cool leader in the company? Which skills, which traits and features do you develop in yourselves? It seems to me that in the global way we have a huge issue with fake, not even news, but the fake world, and the development of this adequacy and critical thinking, when you can separate the fake from reality, is incredibly important in the creative industry in particular. Critical thinking, okay. I think that a very important thing is just the love towards the affair you're doing, to the case and business you're doing. I mean the choice of the job place and the success of yours as a leader. Because if you like what you do, you're ready to take new challenges again, everything will be cool. Thank you. Maybe from my behalf I would say that you should never stop at the achieved. You should never be satisfied with your own results. You shouldn't be just having some rest. And you shouldn't just assess your success than the success of the whole team. Because we can only achieve more when we are working as a team. So, teamwork. Yes, I do join to all of the opinions. I have the favorite brand which produces clothes, North Face. They have their corporate slogan, never stop exploring. So for me, I'm living with that in my head, never stop exploring. So we should be open to everything new and rather critical thinking, yes, especially in this age, it's incredibly important, and it seems to me that without this skill, you cannot just cope in this world. So thank you, dear speakers. Let us give them a round of applause. Thank you, the audience, for some wonderful questions. We are over with this panel, but this is not the end of the conference. That is why, please don't go away. We have one more very interesting speaker. Traditionally, all of the countries of the world are measuring their success by the economical indicators, the GDP, we do know it. But there is the small state in the Himalaya which evaluates the welfare of the country by the index of the gross national happiness. This is just not the philosophy, those are some tools. They have their own Ministry of Happiness, they measure it, they develop it, and they appoint some aims on the achievement of happiness of their own population. This ministry annually checks the level of the satisfaction of citizens and works upon the necessary reforms depending on what they see. Our speaker, Thakur Powdyel, the former Minister of Education, the author of books and extinguished educational professional, who's the author of the strategy of the Green School, one of those who supports the program of education for the gross national happiness. Please meet him, Thakur Powdyel.
Good evening. Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to say what a great delight and an honor it is for me to be able to get into this very special circle. I would like to thank the Club of Rome, the Kiev International Economic Forum, organizers of this very important event today, my hosts, members of the audience, particularly young people who are here, and for whom this event, I understand, has been organized. I've been here in your beautiful country for about 10 days now, and I have received, thank you, I've received some very, very powerful impressions of your country, vast as it is, and bountifully endowed by natural resources. no pollution, as I can see that. And beyond that, your progress as a nation. But I also discovered a tremendous amount of goodwill and positive energy in your country. In the past 10 days or so, I've had the opportunity of interacting with a lot of our educators, teachers, policymakers, and indeed students. I see that some students are here, our youth, and I have received some wonderful impressions of these people about their country, about their future. So I believe that you have a great future for your country, for your people, and a lot of it depends upon the young people I know for which this particular event has been organized. If any nation wants to look at the future, the mirror that reflects that future are the young people. This country needs its young people, just as indeed every country needs its young people to take the country forward and to build a future that they dream of. So to all of you, I would like to say what a great delight it's been for me to be a part of this very special event. The fact that I'm able to talk is thanks to the continuous care and medication provided by my most generous host, Dr. Vladimir, and the very effective honey ginger water that Anna brought. In one of my national languages in Bhutan, Anna means elder sister. So you have been a sister. Thank you so much indeed. I'm sure everybody knows where Bhutan is. Just in case, I'd like to show it on the screen. We are surrounded by two very powerful and large countries in the world. In the south, we border on India. In the east, south, and west. In the north, we are bordered by the autonomous region of Tibet that now belongs to China. So we are a small little dot up in the Himalayas, but we have remained independent and sovereign throughout history, thanks to the wisdom and vision of our leaders, our beloved kings. This country, Bhutan, remained in a kind of self-imposed isolation for several centuries, but about the middle of the last century, when the Second World War had ended and the region was actually trying to reconfigure itself into different nations and streamlining the boundaries, Bhutan thought that the third king of Bhutan, His Majesty Gyalpo Jigme Dorje Wangchuk, who we call the father of modern Bhutan, decided to bring Bhutan out of what we call this self-chosen isolation and make it a part of the global community. He made Bhutan a part of the United Nations organization, several regional and international bodies, and took Bhutan forward from where he found it. The fourth king of Bhutan, who ascended the throne at a very young age, His Majesty Gyalpo Jigme Singye Wangchuk, was very young when he became king. Our third king, having passed away in a faraway land, Nairobi, Kenya, suddenly out of a heart attack. So a young prince had to become the king and look after the country almost overnight. 16, going on 17. But even though young in body, His Majesty was very wise in judgment and far-sighted in vision. As a young king, he had to reflect on and work hard about taking the country forward. And in the early 1970s, Bhutan was a lot less developed then than it is now. predicaments were rather challenging. However, His Majesty reflected on how the country must move forward and what examples there could be that Bhutan could learn from the world community. He looked around and saw that most countries around the world, in fact, all governments around the world, measured progress with this unidimensional linear yardstick called gross domestic product, or GDP, about which the Honorable President of the Club of Rome mentioned in the most beautiful way this afternoon. I will not go into that, but I'll just say that gross domestic product has been used as a convenient tool, and thanks to the economist Simon Kuznets, who I know was a Ukrainian. Gross domestic product is a convenient tool to see and to use the level of progress and development in a country. But our young king saw that gross domestic product as a measure of development and progress told only a part of the story. It didn't tell the whole story. Something was not right, because essentially GDP, or gross domestic product, tells the outer story, the external story. It tells the story of economics. It tells the story of matter and commodities. But life is more than commodities. Life is more than economics. Life is mysterious. It is beautiful. It is various. It is subtle. So is the society. The society is not a straight line. The society is a complex of so many elements, so many variables, constituents that together make it what it is. So, to use one narrow unidimensional measure of GDP was leaving something very important out. So, if a nation has to see development in a holistic term, in a holistic manner, in a more comprehensive manner, we have to use a yardstick that goes beyond GDP, that goes beyond gross domestic product. So, as young as His Majesty was, he decided that for Bhutan, we have to broaden the base of assessment. We have to include other variables and other factors to talk about growth. What is life? It is more than consumption. It is more than production. He questioned, what is the goal of development? What do we call development? Is economics and economic well-being, economic wealth, the only indicator of our nation's progress, a country's development? Aren't there other things that are also important for life? Elements that cannot be measured, elements that cannot be quantified. The multiple dimensions of our life, the multiple dimensions of our society. So he was looking for a North Star. In Bhutan, we don't have a sea or an ocean, but we have our mountains, and we have our valleys, and our beautiful forests. So I don't know what you'll find in the picture here. To save some time, I'll just mention that, many years ago, when we did not have the precision equipment that we have today, sailors and mariners lost on the wide, wide open seas, not knowing where the safety of the port was, looked at the North Star. They looked at the North Star and headed in the direction of the safety of the port. Today, in the 21st century, we may not be looking at the North Star because we have very smartphones and everything is available on the mobile phones, including your precise equipment, the GPS. But even in the 21st century, we continue being in need of our own North Star. Each one of us, all men, women, and children, need our own North Star, our personal, private, secret North Star. A North Star that will guide us and lead us in the direction that we want to go. Our own North Star that will tell us what the purpose of this life is. Where am I going? How do I get where I want to get to? Our own very personal North Star. Need their own North Star. A nation without a North Star would not know how to do the planning, how to mobilize resources, how to use time, and how to take the country forwards. So every country needs its own North Star, just as indeed every man, woman, and child needs a dream, a goal, a destination to reach there as per their dreams, as per their hopes and aspirations. So for Bhutan, His Majesty the Fourth King, who we revere as the King of Destiny, as young as he was, still launched Bhutan's North Star, and this North Star we very fondly call gross national happiness. It is a kind of an antidote, a counterbalance to the dominant conventional measure of development, otherwise called GDP. His Majesty declared that gross national happiness has got to be more important than gross national product. His Majesty was very young, as I mentioned earlier on, and over the past 4.5 decades, this has been our North Star, a new, holistic, and more sustainable, a better integrated model of assessing success, assessing development. So it is not only how much one owns, how much wealth one has in terms of commodities and services and wealth, but looking at what is the level of well-being, what is the level of satisfaction of the people. That would give us a much more reliable and holistic view of a country's development or progress. And as you know, at the end of the day, what do we need? His Majesty realized that regardless of where we are, regardless of who we are, at what time we live, in all continents, in all countries, from coast to coast, tropic to tropic, on all meridians, on all parallels of the earth, all human beings at one level are the same. Each one of us, deep inside us, have one desire. It doesn't matter where we live and when we live. As the famous American poet Carl Sandburg says, there's only one man in the world. His name is all men. There's only one woman in the world. Her name is all women. There's only one child in the world, and the child's name is all children. So, all men, women, and children all over the world, at all times, in all places, have this fundamental desire, the deepest longing of the human heart, to be happy. I don't know, is there anybody here in the hall who doesn't want to be happy? Please raise your hands. You don't want to be happy? No. Is there anybody who doesn't want to be happy? That is the question. I think everybody wants to be happy. I want to be happy, certainly. So, this is what His Majesty realized. Everybody in the world wants to be happy, including the Bhutanese people. So, if happiness is the deepest desire of all people, why not make it a state policy? Why not make it an important effort, endeavor, a collective endeavor of the government, of the people? If that is the goal. If the goal is something else, maybe we could have different models. But if happiness is the most passionate desire, it makes sense to make pursuit of happiness an important stated goal of the society. That's why I'll not go into the current model of GDP and everything else. So, as the Honorable President was saying in the morning, GDP leaves out so many things that make life beautiful, that give meaning and worth and purpose and fulfillment to our lives. A certain minimum level of economic comfort, material comfort is necessary. But beyond that, the law of diminishing returns starts operating, and that we have to decide how much is enough. For example, GDP does not register the beauty of our poetry, our fine art, music. But imagine our life without fine art, without music, without poetry, without literature, without drawings, without a beautiful garden or park that we can walk into. It does not, in fact, register the strength of our marriages or the intelligence of our public debates. It measures everything except that which makes life worthwhile. Imagine if we are to be limited to simply a life that can be quantified, success that can be measured in numerical terms, statistical terms, it would be a very narrow definition of well-being. The Japanese would say long, long ago that material things were necessary, but they were subordinate and fell by the way. It is therefore, it makes sense that material things do not last 1,000 years. So what lasts is life, the beauty of life, the preciousness of life, the solidarity of human beings, our relationship with planet Earth, and our mutual flourishing and sustenance as human beings in relationship with planet Earth. As I mentioned earlier on, the ultimate goal of all human beings is to be happy. Doesn't matter where we are. See? So it must be a stated aim of elected governments to create conditions that make people feel a better sense of well-being and experience a higher level of satisfaction. As we know, the most profound needs of human beings are not necessarily material. Material goods are necessary. We need a certain basic level of comfort, material and economic comfort. But the deepest needs of human beings are not necessarily physical or material, and that there are other dimensions of our life, as indeed there are other dimensions of the society, such as the fact that we have a social dimension, we are social beings. Our social needs, the need to be together, our fellowship, our solidarity as human beings. Excuse me. We are cultural beings, we are emotional beings, we are psychological beings, we are spiritual beings. Above all, we are moral or ethical beings. And if we do not recognize these profound dimensions of the fact that we belong to the society, and in sun or in rain, we need each other. We need to create social value. We need to live together, support each other, celebrate each other. We need to derive strength and sustenance from our culture. We have this very important and intimate relationship with planet Earth, with Mother Nature, and that we have to cultivate this respect for this relationship between us, the human beings, and planet Earth. Then we have our psychological environment, our emotional climate. How do we feel at a certain point in time? We may be very rich at times, or very wealthy, but that does not necessarily make us happy. We need other non-material, non-economic elements to support and nourish and give vitality and meaning and purpose to our lives. When we are happy, we need companionship. We need our family. We need our friends. We need our fellow beings to celebrate joy together. And that's important. And when we are sad, we need somebody's shoulder to lean on, and to find consolation. We need to build community vitality, helping each other. And that's more than money, Money cannot buy goodwill. It cannot buy positive energies. But without that, we cannot live our lives. Love is important. Kindness is important. Trust is important. Understanding is important. Fellow feeling is important. Brotherhood and sisterhood. The humanity of the humans. All these do not count in GDP. They cannot be quantified. So for GDP, these are irrelevant. But for life, they are relevant. We need these very important, profound elements to give us meaning and worth and fulfillment. And today, as we heard, Professor Thakur, the Honorable President of the Club of Rome, say that the only language we know today is the language of economics. The only incentive is economic wealth, and how narrowly it defines life. Most of our life is concerned about production and consumption. Production and consumption. More production and more consumption. And imagine the consequence on the environment if we are to follow this model of development. Consumption and production without an end. The resources of this planet Earth, which are limited and finite. And if our needs, if our wants and desires are infinite or unlimited, planet Earth will not be able to sustain itself. And life could be very unviable. That's why it's so very important to make sure that we know the difference between what we need and what we want. What we need are genuine. They satisfy our deep desires. What we want, these are multiple desires. And Lord Buddha would say that desires are the greatest source of unhappiness and misery. So it's important to balance the relationship between wants and needs. And as we know, there is no direct relationship between what we own, what we possess, material goods, and the level of well-being. In fact, they could be contradictory to each other. They could be antithetical to each other. The wealthiest people in the world are not necessarily the most happy people. Sometimes they could be the most unhappy people, not knowing what to do with their wealth, always concerned about it. And conversely, some of the not so wealthy people could be very happy. So that's why we have to understand that possessing more does not necessarily translate into being happier. So what we need is a model of development that is much more holistic, that takes into account not only economic well-being, not only material wealth. We need a certain level of material comfort, a certain level of economic security. Without these, we cannot live. Life cannot go on. Without bread, we do not live. We cannot live. But that is not everything. So, what we ought to also take into account in a proper full cost accounting of national well-being, full cost accounting of social progress, societal progress, and human well-being ought to be based on a wider range of variables. The environment is important. Today, we're talking about global warming. We're talking about climate change. We're worried about the sustainability of planet Earth and the viability of human life, as indeed life in all its multiple varieties. So taking care of planet Earth on which we walk, taking care of the precious life-giving water that we drink, and indeed the most valuable element, the air that we breathe, is so very important. So it is so very important indeed to maintain this mutually supporting relationship between us, the human beings, and the natural environment, the earth, the planet Earth. Otherwise, we have seen in many parts of the world, the earth is becoming uninhabitable. Water is becoming undrinkable, and air is becoming unbreathable. Life becoming unviable. The state of the world is rather worrying. If we want to live our lives in a sustainable manner, by which we mean meeting the needs of the current generation, while at the same time keeping something for succeeding generations, our children, and our children's children, and their children, it is so very important. And we also need to know that we, the human beings, are only a microcosm in the big macrocosm of this planet Earth, which is home to not only us, the human beings, but so many other life forms, other human beings, plants, animals, birds, insects, life in its infinite variety. Each of these life forms has a legitimate claim on the resources and the gifts and the blessings of planet Earth. That is why it is so very important for us to maintain this very special relationship between us, the human beings, and planet Earth. In the gross national happiness paradigm, this relationship between us, the human beings, and planet Earth is so very important. As you know, GDP does not recognize this relationship as being all that important. GDP will be happy if we use any and every means to increase revenues. Cut down all the trees, you increase revenues. Mine all the oceans, exploit the resources of this earth. Overnight, you can increase your GDP. But if this is the state of our world, if this were to be the norm, you can imagine what will be left for future generations. It will be an extremely, extremely unlivable, unviable, and an unsustainable state of affairs. And economic well-being is important. After all, we have to live. We have to celebrate this precious life. And we need a certain basic minimum comfort. That's why it's important to bring about economic prosperity, economic development. But what kind of economic development? Enlightened policies. Enlightened policies, wise policies, policies that do not deprive some sections and benefit the others. Equitable policies, balanced policies. In the world as we know today, one of the greatest reasons for unhappiness is inequity. There is no fairness in the distribution of the resources of the earth. There is no equity or balance in the sharing of development opportunities. As the Honorable President of the Club of Rome was saying, a very small percentage of the people in the world hold the lion's share of the wealth, and the vast majority is left to fend for itself with the limited resources left by those who claim the lion's share. So in this unfair, unjust, equitable situation, the consequence of this pattern will be unhappiness. That's why governments have to make sure that economic and development opportunities are equitably shared across the country and amongst the people. And also, culture is very important for us. Culture is an extremely important source of our happiness. Culture talks about who we are. Culture is a statement of how we become who we are. It talks about our history, our civilization, our heritage, our tradition, our faith, our belief, our worldview, our art, architecture, language and literature, sports and games, songs and dances, and the way we live our lives, the way we prepare our food and drinks, the way we celebrate events, marriages, birthdays, and observe death rituals, the way we conduct ourselves, the way we dress ourselves. All these are very important as a source of confidence and security and reassurance for us as a people and as a nation. These give us a sense of uniqueness and a sense of our own identity. So culture is an extremely important element of our culture. I'm sure this is the case in other societies as well. For example, one could ask, what is the Ukrainian culture? What makes Ukraine Ukraine? What is unique about Ukraine's history, its culture, its civilization? Culture is important as a point of reference. We came from somewhere. We are not here just at this point in time. There has been a long, long tradition, a heritage, and that gives us confidence and reassurance. We need that point of reference. And if we have a strong grounding in our culture, it gives us a very, very strong foundation to look beyond, to look to the future. And governance. Governance is so very important. If governance is not sensitive, if it is not mindful and thoughtful, it can create a lot of problems. If governance is responsible, then it can look after the environment. It will bring about balanced and equitable socio-economic development. It will look after the integrity of our planet Earth. It will also ensure that culture, heritage, uniqueness of the people and the society are respected and preserved. Above all, it will be mindful. Governance should be an instrument of service. It has to be an instrument of people's welfare. What does governance do? Governance is everywhere. Whether we like it or not, governance touches us all the time. And if governance is bad, irresponsible, or thoughtless, it can affect us, the human beings, members of the society and the country in a very, very negative way. But if the governance is enlightened, if it is positive, and if it is mindful and thoughtful, it can bring about a lot of joy. It can bring about happiness. It can be the cause of people's well-being. But as you know, in many parts of the world, governance becomes the cause of a lot of unhappiness. Why can't governance be the cause of joy and happiness? Because everybody's involved in it. We elect governments. And once we place our trust in the government, it better do a good jobs, and that it create those conditions, those environments which enable the people to experience a better sense of well-being. So in Bhutan, gross national happiness is our North Star, as our pathfinder has been gross national happiness. Many people ask us, let me show one more slide. So gross national happiness as a development paradigm ought to be environmentally more sensitive, culturally more enlightened, economically responsible, and a people-centered framework. If this happens, chances are that we could be making fewer mistakes, and that we could be more conscious about the role of each of these constituents in the society. I talked about these already, the 4 pillars of gross national happiness. And these are further divided into psychological well-being, standard of living and good governance, health, education, community vitality, cultural diversity and resilience, as indeed time use, and ecological and ecological diversity and resilience. So these are very important. First, we have the 4 pillars I talked about. These 4 pillars are divided into these 9 domains, which are further divided into indices. And we have what is called the Center for Bhutan Studies is a think tank. And this think tank carries out surveys regularly every 3 years, using the 4 pillars and the 9 domains and the subdomains, preparing a large set of questionnaires and looking at the status of well-being and happiness in the country. He is our current king, His Majesty Dugyalpo Jimi Gesanamge Wonchu. And for His Majesty, gross national happiness means development with values. We heard in the morning and in the afternoon, in so many beautiful ways, the claim of values in the assessment of the quality of our life, the claim of values in the assessment of the quality of our society. So values are so important. We need to know right from wrong, good from bad, truth from falsehood. These are values. What is our life based on? What principles govern our life? What principles, what values is our society based on? Our country based on? What is important for us? What are the national priorities? What are the people's aspirations? Are we honest and truthful? Are we transparent, fair, and just? Are we people-centered? Do we care for the environment? Do we care for the world beyond? Are we peace-loving? Do we love peace? Do we live at peace with ourselves? Are we at peace with the neighbors and the people beyond our boundaries, our territory? How do we look at the environment? Some values to direct our life. Values as a compass to direct our life. So these are some of the important considerations in estimation of gross national happiness. As you know, this is our big dream. This is our big goal, our North Star. But this is very challenging to pursue a goal guided by gross national happiness. It takes a lot of moderation. It takes a lot of mindfulness. It takes a lot of reflection, a sense of responsibility, a sense of ownership, a deep, deep sense of integrity. But what is life without these? Some values are important. We do not know when and how we will be able to realize as completely as possible our deeply cherished goal. We may take 1 generation or 2 generations or 3 generations. We may not actually get to the North Stars, but we feel that all nations need a North Star. Our country certainly needs a North Star, and our fourth king launched this North Star. Today, we do our planning, we do our programs, national projects based on these important pillars and the domains and the principles of gross national happiness. Are we there yet? No. It is a journey. And the fact that we need a North Star and remain faithful to the North Star already is positive in terms of directing us in the right direction. The chances are that we make fewer mistakes. Many countries around the world who know about gross national happiness believe that Bhutan must be the happiest country in the world, and the Bhutanese people must be the happiest people in the world, because Bhutan is the cradle of gross national happiness. And the book, Come On, has Bhutan as an example of a success story. However, Bhutan is not a Shangri-La. It is not a dreamland. It is a real country. It's a geographical entity. And the Bhutanese people are real people, flesh and blood, like myself. We are born, we get sick, we get old, we die, like everybody else. We have our hopes and dreams. We have our fears and our anxieties. But we have a dream. We have a North Star. We feel that it's important to remain faithful to that dream. There are other countries which are doing better in terms of global comparisons on the happiness index. But we would like to go at our pace. This is a journey we have chosen. This is the North Star we have identified. And we feel that as long as we are faithful to this North Star, we should be on the right track. I think I'll stop here, and if there are some questions, I'll be happy to try and respond to those. Thank you very much indeed.
Questions?
Sorry. Yes.
Thank you for this inspiring speech. My question is about real figures which you measure. Can you give examples of the figures? Because in any case, if we have to measure, we have to have numbers, which we don't like.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Professor. I've been asked this question so many times, and so have my fellow citizens whenever we interact with an international audience. We are accustomed to measuring everything. We are accustomed to counting everything. But so many things in life are not counted, are not countable. We cannot measure everything. And if we insist upon, if we are obsessed with the measurement, we go the same GDP wheel. And happiness, which is so subtle, so fine, so delicate. It is the climate of the soul. It is the climate of the mind. It is the climate of the human heart. These are feelings, sentiments that radiate inside us and that radiate from our lives in our surroundings. So not everything can be measured and quantified. As you might know, St. Augustine was once asked, "What is time?" He said, "As long as you don't ask me what is time, I know what it is. The moment you ask that question, I don't know what is time." In the same ways, we would like to be able to look at a sense of well-being, societal well-being, and people's happiness, and the security and well-being of our planet Earth along a slightly different mode. Having said that, Professor, I have to mention that, as I did earlier on, we have our own think tank. It is called the Center for Bhutan Studies and GNH Research. This body carries out surveys regularly, in fact, every 2 or every 3 years. So far, they have carried out 3 important surveys. They use several items, statistical research tools. They collect a sizable sample of respondents from across the country using a large number of people. They analyze the data and come to an assessment of how the country is doing, which part of the country is doing better than other parts, whether some communities are doing less well than they ought to. And they use both quantitative as well as qualitative measures to look at happiness and well-being. So gross national happiness is not just a fine feeling or an idealistic philosophy. It is mainstreamed into policy planning, and the Constitution of Bhutan mentions, it stipulates that pursuit of happiness, gross national happiness, will remain an important commitment of the country. So governments may come and go, but this goal of the country will remain. And we have what is called, we do not have a Ministry of Happiness, but we have what is called the Gross National Happiness Commission. It mobilizes resources, it does the planning, it does the allocation of resources. So government ministries and the departments preparing the annual plans and the 5-year plans will have to submit their projects and programs that ought to be compatible with the principles of gross national happiness. If their programs are not compatible with the principles of gross national happiness, they will be rejected. They will not pass the gross national happiness lens test, and they will not get state funding. So it is not only a policy, but it is a tool, it's an instrument, it is a very serious business. Thank you.
Mr. Powdyel, thank you so much for such a brilliant speech and presentation. Such an insightful, inspiring, and very forward-looking. It's very important for Ukraine. We really appreciate that you came here to our conference, that you participate, and that you influence Ukraine's future. Because here is in this audience young Ukrainian people. They are architects of the future of Ukraine. And I'm sure that your speech will have further development here in Ukraine. And by the way, I know that here with us is director of Ukrainian Institute of Happiness, and there can be a collaboration on this theme. So thank you so much for your brilliant input. We really appreciate it.
You're very kind, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Шановні колеги, а я...
Dear colleagues, and I,
дуже правильно.
well, of course, this is the very right thing to do. Thank you so much. We'd like to thank you for this wonderful speech, and we'd like to give you a gift of those 2 books. This is the book Legacy, which is in English, 50 Ukrainians who changed the world, 50 happiest Ukrainians, beginning with Kazimir Malevich. And here we have the people who have created Wi-Fi, the people who have created all of that. Those are our compatriots who created PayPal. And come on, of course, come on in English, that's also for you. Thank you so much. Igor Stepurin, Samir Knigach, is the publisher of the Jubilee translation of the report for the Club of Rome. Come on. Dear colleagues, esteemed colleagues, well, of course, I don't want to finalize this conference, but still, for today, we need to do that. I have one more short announcement to make, because undoubtedly we are not saying goodbye, we're just saying farewell, we are saying goodbye. We'll keep connected with you through the website clubofrome.org.ua. If you don't know this website, through the chatbot which you installed, we'll have this interactive connection. Moreover, I have the honor to announce from behalf of the Ukrainian Association of the Club of Rome and Kyiv International Economic Forum the new competition, the contest, because last year we had the competition of economic articles. This year, this is the contest of the video presentation, 5-minute video presentation of your idea, of your clever economic growth of Ukraine, sustainable growth and development of the economic growth which will make Ukrainians happier and still it won't destruct our nature. What will base upon really the values, the strategies, the perspectives, and what will be the dignity not only for us but for the future generations as well. So we ask you, would you please record a 5-minute video reel. This would be the idea, or maybe the new idea or the older idea. I'm sure that you have lots of new ideas after such a fantastic speakers of the planetary scale. So make this 5-minute pitch what your idea of clever economic growth for Ukraine is, which mechanisms of its implementation exists, and what are the expected effects. And the best of you, the most creative and the most big-scale ideas will have money prizes from the Association of the Club of Rome and the opportunity to take part in the Kyiv International Economic Forum, where you will be able to meet again with the fantastic people which you could see today and hear today. So thank you so much for your attention, for your active participants. See you soon.